Hey guys, David here. I am a strength coach by trade, a hobbyist maker for most of my life, and I love to lift heavy. I train strongman, and I've done so for about 10 years now, lifting Atlas stones, axle bars, Husafell stones. I've even traveled to Scotland and Iceland to pick up the manhood stones there. During the COVID pandemic, I needed a way to work out at my home. In that time, I created the rack you see behind me, as well as my own weights out of concrete to help myself lift heavy as I do at my normal gym. I got a lot of requests to figure out a way to replicate the stones that I had made myself. And that's how I came up with the idea for the DA plate mold. In the mold kits that you get from us, you can get a 17.5-inch mold or a 12.5-inch mold, both of which come with 2 Olympic-sized sleeves that are 3 inches long and a bag of concrete fiber reinforcement. The supplies you'll need are a way to mix concrete, either a 5-gallon bucket, a concrete mixing tub, and a flat nose shovel, or an electric mixer. You'll need bags of concrete, either 50 pounds or 80-pound bags that are 5,000 PSI or higher, enough water for that mixture, rubber gloves, because concrete poisoning is a thing, isopropyl alcohol, spray silicone or paste wax, hot glue gun, or 100% silicone caulk. You can also use rebar, about a 1/2 inch, so it's still easy to bend, and get about 3 to 4 feet of it so you can make a full circle and set it inside the concrete mix. Angle grinder with cutoff wheels and sanding discs to finish the pipe, a scale, plastic trash bags, spring clamps, and a towel. Some additional things you may want to have are an agitator, either a reciprocating saw with no blade, a oscillating sander, or a back massager to help vibrate the sides of the mold to help bubbles get out. Oil paint to finish off the face of it, as well as if you want to put foam numbers into the mold to help indent the numbers on the face of the plate before you pour the concrete. Now that you have all your supplies, we go into step 1, prepping the mold. If it's brand new out of the box, use your dry towel, just wipe out any dust or debris that may be in there. If you've already used the mold, make sure you use some isopropyl alcohol and wipe it down and make sure all the crust and all the dried portions of the concrete has been taken out of the mold as well. Have your mold on a flat surface, because when you start pouring the concrete, it will level itself to be even with the ground. Take your hot glue gun and put a good solid bead of hot glue on the inside of your sleeve. Take that sleeve and put it onto your center index of your mold and quarter turn so there's a good bond on the inside of that index. That bond will help keep concrete from seeping up into the cavity where your bar will go. Now take your silicone spray or your paste wax and put a good even coat around the entire area of the mold. But make sure not to let any pooling happen. If there's a pool of silicone spray, it can actually mix with the concrete and create a sticking point inside the mold. Next step is mixing your concrete. Follow the directions on your bag or the type of concrete that you have. Each concrete is different, either 5,000 PSI or higher. It will have different amounts of water that's necessary to get a good bond. As you mix to get a good consistency of concrete, start putting in the fibers that we give you. The bag that we give you is 1 ounce. Half of that bag is good for about 50 pounds of concrete. So if you're making a single 45-pound plate, take half that bag of fibers and start spreading them through the concrete mix as you're turning it over, so that's an even, consistent mix of fibers through the concrete. If you're doing a 100-pound plate, or if you're making more than 1 plate at once, that's over 50 pounds, it's better to use 3/4 to an entire bag of the fibers that we give you to help strengthen the entire mass of concrete that you're using. These fibers, when mixed into the concrete evenly, create a lattice work that helps strengthen the concrete for tensile strength, as well as shearing and compression strength. Once you've mixed your concrete, take a small amount out and put a little bit more water in it. This will help with getting into the defined details in the front of the mold. As you tap it in and get it kind of mixed into those cracks and crevices in the front face of the mold, it'll help with bubbles to rise out later and give you a smoother surface for the finish of the plate. Remember that every bit of concrete that you add to this mold will add to the overall weight of the plate. So make sure that you weigh and measure every bit that goes in. So if you're going for a 45-pound plate, make sure to go about 46, maybe 47 pounds for the entire weight of the plate, because the bucket that you're setting on your weight scale will add to the weight, as well as the water inside the mixture. There will be a little bit of water loss in the curing of this mixture, so there will be a little bit of drop in weight. But it is better to have a heavy plate than it is to have a light plate, because you can always sand and carve down to get to the weight you want. But it's really hard to add weight to the concrete once it's already cured. Now that you have the correct weight in your bucket, bring it to your mold and start adding layers into the concrete. Every layer you get flattened out, make sure to shake and agitate the plate mold to help bubbles to rise up through the thin surface that you just laid down. If you put the entire amount of concrete inside the mold and then try to shake and agitate it, the bubbles will have a lot more trouble getting up and out of the mixture, and you'll have a lot more pock marks and bubble holes inside the surface of your plate. If you choose to use rebar, make sure to lay it in the center of your plate. Once you've laid down about half your concrete, lay the rebar on top of the mix and then pour the rest of your concrete on top. This will make sure that your plate is even. If you're using an agitator like an oscillating sander or reciprocating saw or a back massager, once you've gotten the entire weight of concrete inside the mold, this is the time to use that. You'll run it around the outer edge on the outer rim of the weight, as well as on the top face of the mold as well, to help vibrate the edges and get those bubbles to rise to the top and out of the face of the plate. As you're agitating, you'll see that the top of the concrete mix will look a little wetter and actually almost have a film of water on top. That's perfectly fine. Just make sure that it is smooth and there's no extra bubble holes and no rocks sitting on top to create an uneven or unsmooth surface. Something to be mindful of is to not over agitate the concrete. This can create a break in the bond between the hot glue on the center sleeve and the index of the plate mold, which will allow concrete to seep up in the center cavity of the plate. Next, take your trash bag and cover the top of the mold and use your spring clamps to evenly space around to make sure it stays tight. This trash bag will keep more moisture in the mix and help prolong the curing process. The longer the curing process of the concrete, the stronger the bond will be. Now the next step is an act of patience, waiting 24 to 48 hours to let that concrete cure and set inside the mold. Once you've waited the allotted amount of time, uncover the plastic and take the spring clamps off. Fold up your towel and lay it on the ground. Flip over your plate mold face down onto the towel. That towel is there for when the plate does release and go to the floor, it doesn't contact hard against the ground and have a chance of cracking right now. The concrete is drying and set, but it is not fully cured and it's actually at its weakest point right now. Compress and tap on top of the face of the plate mold. This will create an air gap and help release the plate from the face of the mold. Once released, it'll land on top of the towel and you will be able to take the plate mold off of the top and set it aside. The center pipe for the sleeve of the plate will be about a ½ inch longer than the thickness of your plate. This is to help when you set it face up on the ground to have air flow under and over the said plate. Remember, concrete is only at 50 to 70% strength after about 5 to 7 days. After 28 days, it becomes fully cured and at its strongest point. So within this time, you can turn the plate face down and cut off with your angle grinder the excess tubing that's on the back of the plate, as well as sand and finish out the back. Make sure you weigh the plate as you go along to see if you're at or above the weight that you want it to be, and slowly take off pieces and parts of the concrete to make sure that it's at the exact weight that you're looking for. After you've gotten it to the weight you want it to be, you can turn it back face up. I personally use oil-based paint on a thin roller and roll it across the high points of the details to help show off the word and the logos and the details of the plate. I also use a 2-inch stencil for the kgs and the pounds on each side of the plate. Now it's time to repeat. Rinse out your mold with isopropyl alcohol, get all the extra glue and excess dust and debris out, and do your next one. This mold is built to be more economical the more you use it. If you make 100 plates out of it, you're paying pennies on the dollar what you do from a production weight company. We'd love to see your build processes as well as your finished products and you training with the weights that you make from our molds. Tag us on Instagram at Sticks and Stone. We'd love to see it.